I think we can start now. Just 20 minutes, record time, I think, to figure out the crap.
Right.
So,
it's always the way, by the way, and also the most, what should we say? The people who have the most experience with the sound setups often have the most complications.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know who you're
because you set everything up for yourself, and not for like this context.
You mean, are you talking to me? Actually, now I'm confused because we are three. And
oh my god.
Okay, but anyway, I'm happy to see you, and I want to ask you if you know that we met in last summer, because I have a suspicion you don't, but I do.
Well, Ray is a celebrity now, so there are a lot of people meeting us. So it's very difficult to remember all the fans that we have.
So when did we meet, Daniel?
We met at the NICE conference from Arne and.
Okay. Yes, in Leuven,
our friend,
the heart of Clojure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Heart of Clojure. I was sitting next to you, Vijay, at one point. I was wondering, is this Vijay?
It can be me. I have many other, Indian people that I send as.
Yeah, they all look the same.
Why? Exactly. We all look the same.
You were not there?
No, I was there.
So?
That's true. So I think
does sitting next to him count as meeting him? No,
not really.
Well, I talked to you, Ray. I said hello. But,
yeah. Okay. Guilty.
No, you were very nice.
I think we should just flip this. So why do you think we invited you for the podcast? This is because we met at Heart of Clojure, remember?
Yeah, exactly. We're following up. Come on.
So this is episode number 61 with Daniel. I'm gonna try to pronounce your last name. Szmulewicz.
Yeah, I mean, I have
I'm
no
going to go with Szmulewicz.
Szmulewicz, I think.
You can say that. I mean, I have no qualms.
What do you say though?
Well, in here we say Szmulewicz.
Szmulewicz.
So the tone is a bit different. But in Europe, people butcher Polish names all the time, and I don't know Polish myself. So I'm very used to hear my names in all kinds of creative ways. And Szmulewicz, you can try to say Szmulewicz.
Yeah, Szmulewicz. Because I thought it was a Polish name. And of course, when usually in if you see C and Z together, it's usually Polish, I think.
It is, and it means son of soul.
Oh. Okay.
It's like McDermott is son of Dermot, right?
That's right, yeah. The Irish version of it, yeah.
Okay. Nice. So, but you're not in Poland right now. So
I was never in Poland. Yeah, I was born in Belgium, and I live in Israel since 1986-7.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you up to there? So what do you do there? Maybe a quick introduction.
A quick introduction.
We obviously know that we met at Heart of Clojure. We know a lot about you, but we want our audience to know more about you.
Exactly.
So I'm an accidental programmer, basically. I never decided to be a programmer, but I just one day I saw that writing code for living. But what I actually wanted was to write. So I saw myself as a writer, and I had a couple of years of working as a journalist. And then I decided to be a novelist, which is some kind of upgrade. And I hit the road and I traveled for a couple of years, writing travel novels. I published a couple of them. And then I saw that I was very poor. And I picked up programming during my time when I was writing, because I was using a computer. So as a journalist also, I was exposed to a cultural movement in the 80s, end of 80s, beginning of 90s. The Wired magazines hyping up the future. I was attentive. There was no internet yet, but they talked about BBSs and all kinds of stuff that could happen. I bought a computer and I started a BBS. At one point, I started to sell internet connectivity. I was calling people and saying, maybe you want to connect to the internet? And they would say, to the what? I was too early. Yeah.
But you were at the beginning of like robocalling.
Absolutely. Actually, the BBS was called Robo BBS or something.
Oh my God.
Or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but so I'm used also to small programming communities. I was writing Rex code in my first job ever. And Rex was a small scripting language that shipped with OS2. And the reason I was using OS2 was I was very upset with Microsoft Windows 3.1. And I was an enthusiast, early supporter of OS2. And I discovered the scripting language. I was using a word processor also, where I was writing my novels in something called Describe, a word processor, very good word processor, way ahead of its time compared to the other alternatives on Microsoft. And from then on, it's I was always interested in these exotic small program communities. I did Rebel for a while. I don't know if you know that. Rebel is a general purpose programming language.
Is it like REBOL, right?
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, Rebel, yeah.
Like a punk version of COBOL, isn't it?
System. Sorry?
It's like a punk version of COBOL.
It's a punk version of something. Yes. I'm not sure of COBOL. I think it's a Lispish in nature. It has a lot of going for it, or it had, because one of the complaints was that it was not open source. At one point, the community fractured, and there was another project called Red, which was the open source version of Rebel. Same ideas and same people also. And I would say that the defining characteristics was that it was a very small footprint. I think 300K or something like that. And it did everything. It did GUIs, parsing, web stuff. It had a very big core library. And it was one guy, basically. Somebody who was involved in the Amiga.
Yeah.
And he retired early because he could. And he decided to grow vineyards in California and do wine and do a little programming language on the side. And he got it, followers.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was nice. So when people tell me that nobody knows what the programming language I'm using, I'm used to it.
So how did you end up in Clojure world then?
I was always looking to use Lisp languages. And I was continually looking into Common Lisp or Scheme, and I never could find the impetus to jump. I was afraid of being left out when doing web development or stuff like that. And probably I could have been more intrepid with, especially with Common Lisp, because Common Lisp has everything. But I didn't do the plunge. At one point, I suppose that when I was ready to do the plunge, I heard about Clojure, and then I jumped, and I didn't look back actually.
So what type of, so obviously you started from journalism and then being an author or novelist, and so do you now work professionally as a programmer, or is it still like a side gig for you?
No, I was in the industry for too many years. I did everything. I was, engineer in a team. I was independent, giving as a consultant. Unfortunately, I know what an office looks like. But at some point, I got lucky, and one of my side projects started making money. And as soon as I had the chance, I quit all my jobs. And now it's been something like 5 years that I run with my own projects. I have 2 projects that make money and that bring food on the table. Not a lot, but just enough to have a small belly. And one is Etsy app or e-commerce app that allows merchants to automate the publishing of tweets based on the inventory.
Yeah.
And I have integrations for Etsy, Shopify, Weebly, and Equid. And my second project, which I started 3 years ago, is a solution to circumvent censorship in China.
Oh, okay.
My wife is Chinese, and I have family, and I go to visit. And I had a need for a solution.
Yeah.
And when I found one, I was happy with it. I started to build a service around it. And I would say that what defines my service is that it uses proxies instead of VPNs. So it's more lightweight. It's based on open source. And the audience is for power users.
Yeah.
So is that a proxy that runs on the laptop or on the desktop then? Because otherwise the proxy still lets the ISP look at stuff.
Excuse me, can you say this again?
If you have a proxy on the internet, the service provider can still see the traffic up to that proxy. So does the proxy run on the desktop?
Proxy, you can connect to the proxy on all platforms, if this is the question, and all devices. There are clients for Android and iOS, as well as for desktop on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Just because it's open source projects and people have made clients on all those platforms.
Oh, okay.
But don't people shut down access to that proxy, for example. That's the obvious thing that an authoritarian regime would do.
You mean IP, blocking the IP because it's a proxy? So there is a game of cat and mouse regarding IPs, but people find ways to adapt quickly when an IP is blocked, because I can assign, a DNS name to the new IP, which is not blocked and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So in practical terms, it was never an issue for my service. Also because I'm small and China doesn't look into, it's not bothered by a service like mine.
You go under the radar in that case.
Under the radar, but the Chinese system doesn't look to block all traffic to the outside world. It looks to establish some kind of a wall, invisible wall for its residents, and make sure that most residents are not interested in content outside of China, but they know very well, and probably themselves they use VPNs all the time to get access to more information and diverse information. So
So do you use Clojure for these businesses already?
Yes, I use Clojure as my daily driver since 2013. I rewrote this Twitterful app in Clojure. It was initially a Ruby on Rails app, and I was feeling the pain. I wanted to have more control, and I did a bigger rewrite. Okay.
So how do you compare Ruby on Rails experience with Clojure? Because one of the, I think, time and again, this comes up again and again, like Clojure doesn't have something like Ruby on Rails.
And good so, but I will explain myself. And I also have an announcement to make.
Ooh, cool.
regarding precisely this question.
We get the scoops on Defen.
Yeah.
Exactly. I decided to make a video and finish it before the podcast so that our viewers or your viewers can profit from it. So it's on YouTube. I just uploaded it before we started talking, and it's I'm revisiting the classical Ruby on Rails demo from 2005, in which DHH builds a blog engine.
Yeah, the 15 minutes blog engine. Yeah,
exactly. The whoops video, because it says whoops. Look at all the code I'm not writing, which is genius. And really, I wanted to pay homage to what he did, the movement that spurred. It was basically giving up the ability to programmers to write web apps when they didn't really understand the underlying stack. The deal is learn Ruby, learn the framework, and don't worry about SQL, about JavaScript, about CSS, HTML, and stuff like that, or HTTP.
Or databases.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to make a video and show what would happen if you really had to write everything.
Yeah.
and it's not bad. That's the point. You have to understand how you do SQL on the JVM, but there are built-in classes, and you can do Clojure interrupt. So the idea was to make the same exact application, a blog engine, but with in Clojure on the JVM and no libraries. So no routing libraries, and just the minimal stuff. So it's a ring. SQL is taken care of by the JVM. It has built-in classes to do that. And I use Hiccup for the templating.
Yeah.
And that's it. So it's an educational kind of video. And I hope entertaining.
How do you style the front end? Because that was the other thing that he was doing.
No, he doesn't style the front. It's HTML. It's pure HTML. And the browser has this default CSS style sheet. So the inputs are just raw as the browser renders it.
Okay, yeah.
And I do the same. So
okay.
So in your project, then obviously, I mean, for Hello World, it's easy to say, or it's not easy to say whether it is, how complicated it is or how easy it is or whatever. But for your project, migrating from Ruby on Rails to Clojure, so how did it go? And then were there any things? Is there any situation where like, oh fuck it, and I should have done this in Rails? Active Mailer is easier.
No, the problem with an app written in Ruby on Rails is that you really pay the price. Like it's a little bit like selling your soul to the devil, because you accept the idea of trading expertise with commodity. And it's a game which is well played as long as your circumstances are valid. But when things change and suddenly you want to do something which is in disconnect with the framework, or something that you don't quite understand and you don't know how to achieve it with the framework, then you experience pain. And I wanted to take things under control. And Clojure forced me to look into all the moving parts. And the process was very interesting and very exhausting as well, because it was 2013. There was already Ring, and the main players were there, but there was kind of terra incognita with regards to practices. And I had to experiment, and I wanted to experiment, but it took a long time before I could make all the parts play well together. And in the meantime, there were many things happening. For example, when I started writing the app, there was Ring, but there was no Duct framework, for example. When Duct frameworks came out, I did something which helped me substantially, and I'm still using it today. I adapted the Duct framework to the component framework. So the endpoints and the routing endpoints of my web application and the handler and the middleware, they are componentized. So they are exactly this. I write the system map declaratively, and a database comes alongside, is on the same level as the handler or the middleware or the endpoints. And this allowed me to have one uniform API to start the system. And that helped tremendously also for reloading at the REPL, which I automated and which I integrated in my own tools. Yeah, I don't know if I clear enough.
One thing to ask, yeah, it's fine. One thing to dig in a bit deeper there, Daniel, was did you kind of benefit from the REPL at the beginning, or was that something that came later? Since you mentioned the REPL integration now.
The REPL was always the main reason I was attracted to Lisp and Clojures. It was the first thing I made sure that I'm developing in a REPL, that I can inspect everything, that I can restart everything. And that has always been the main thing for me. And that's why I developed the system library, which is a repository of components.
Yeah.
I never properly documented my open source projects, and I'm guilty of that. But
you're the only one, actually. That's really horrible. I mean, everyone else documents their open source projects perfectly. So, you must feel really bad.
Some people do. Some people do better job than me.
Sure.
I have to admit. And kudos to Martin Klepsch, who did a wonderful initiative to help people do the work.
Yeah.
Without friction. But so the system frameworks has this mini framework, mini web framework, which is equivalent to Duct, from James Reeve. James Reeve has always influenced my work, because what he was doing was he was working at the same time, and he was just ahead of me. And I was looking at what he was doing and say, wow, that's really good work. So when he came with Integrant, I was already with my own framework. So I haven't used Integrant, but I suspect that the ideas are very similar. Declaratively declare a system, and then be able to tear down and restart, which is invaluable at the REPL.
Since we're talking about these dependency injection frameworks, essentially, one of the criticisms of Component is that it's a bit infectious, and things like Mount and Integrant attempt to reduce the blast radius, if you like, of their frameworks. Is that something which you do as well, or you're aware of those trade-offs?
So that's a very good question, which unfortunately I have a disappointing answer. But I will be upfront. There are a couple of concerns in Clojure development that are met by competing products or projects. And you just mentioned Mount versus Component, and they covered the same concern. They address the same concerns. And the same goes with web development, for example, because we have we have ring and pedestal. We have handlers and inject. How do you call this? Interceptors. Yeah. The same goes for the client Clojure script libraries. Competing stuff, reagent and OM, or today maybe reagent and helix, or whatever the thing is. I, at very early on, because I sweated so much in making my parts moving, once I found my cocktail, the things that were working together, I stick with it. So Component was solving my problem, and I didn't look into Mount. And the same goes for pedestal. I was happy with ring. I didn't need asynchronous handlers or something like that. And I'm still with OM. I have a patched version, which works perfectly. I mean, when David Nolan gave us OM and gave a solution to create a EI as a function of state, that's all I wanted. I didn't need anything else, and I still don't.
No, I think that's fine. I think, like you say, if you get something that works and you can maintain it, and you're looking after your own patched version, that's a solution that you want. But obviously, for the broader community, there's a different answer, I guess.
Exactly, and that leads us to community and my relationship to community. So for me, community is two things. One is shared experience. Mm-hmm. And I relate to that. I love going to conference and meeting people and having conversations. The other thing is consensus building. A community looks at how things are best done. Because beginners ask questions and more experienced developers give answers, and a consensus gets constructed, gets refined, answers are given and are deemed correct, or the correct way, or the recommended way. And that aspect of community I relate from just further away. I'm not so interested in that. Not because the advice or the wisdom that emanates from this effort is to be disavowed, no. But it's just received wisdom, becomes received wisdom. And I prefer to remain critical at all times and examine things. So I'm less interested in comparing different solutions and deciding which one is best and making recommendations and stuff like that.
But we have broad experience with, or pretty long experience with programming communities, starting back, from Rebel and Red. So how do you see these communities then? I mean, especially these days, because back in the day, niche programming community would mean, sitting at IRC and that's pretty much it. And obviously, Clojure is not a niche programming language anymore.
Even at the time of IRC, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
It's horrible. As Jean-Paul Sartre has said, l'enfer c'est les autres.
Oh,
it means hell is the other. So
I don't think he meant it literally,
I didn't say it. Sartre did.
Yeah.
It's a quote.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I've seen the same things playing out in every community, like Vijay hinted at. There is always everything that humans are capable of that come to the fore. So you have the good things: help, collaboration, caring. And then you have the bad things, which is pettiness and entitlement and ego, a lot of ego.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So I think it's the usual question, obviously, the only question that we'd like to ask on this podcast, like, is it Emacs or some other shit?
So we reached that stage. Is it because my opinion on communities?
No.
Okay. I'm just joking. So it should be obvious from my Twitter handle, because I call myself MX Meshuggah.
Yeah.
Which is Yiddish for crazy. Yeah, Emacs, of course. Emacs is a lifestyle, right?
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, Ray.
It's okay. I think editor communities are like ordinary communities. They bring out the best and the worst in people.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm just quoting someone I heard earlier.
Touché. Yeah. No, I discovered Emacs I don't know. I probably don't want to remember, but I'm being at it for a good while, and it just pays off more and more. It's like the more you progress, the more it pays off.
Yeah.
Because it does so much, and because it's a Lisp environment. It's some kind of realization of the Lisp machine. We didn't get the hardware; it didn't happen, but we have Emacs.
Yeah. So in terms of course, I mean, you use Emacs, but I think that this is a question that is linked to, like, what's your opinion about the tooling around Clojure in general? Obviously, if you use Emacs, you're using Cider, but there are other things as well these days. So, did you try any of them, or?
I remember the days when Cider was breaking, when Piggyback was some kind of a nightmare. It was very difficult to get a Clojure script, REPL. And then everything got better thanks to the work of the good people. And Bojidar, hello Bojidar, thank you so much. And support him. I mean, the community has produced amazing tooling. Bojidar has also done amazing work because he separated concerns, and you have this separate library which is generic for tooling, and then he restructured the whole tooling ecosystem. And then tools.deps came, which also made things much better in terms of tooling. So today, I feel extremely privileged. Nothing breaks anymore. Things are solid. There's a very solid foundation. We've seen some kind of maturity in tooling, which a lot of Lispers envy for. I mean, we have one of the best ecosystems in the Lisp world. I won't, leave the common Lispers outside because they get offended very quickly, and maybe also for good reason, because Slime is basically the thing that inspired everything.
Yeah.
But I'm extremely happy with the tooling, and maybe that's the good time to tell what happened when tools.deps came out. There was a strong desire to integrate tools.deps in our build tools. And I was an early boot adopter. I thought that it was great to have a build tool that can run in one process and spawn, your REPL for the Clojure skip and for your web server, which you couldn't do with Leiningen.
Yeah.
And the execution model of boot was very smart. So I was happy with boot, but then, and I wrote also a lot of plugins for boot. But I noticed something. After a while, I was forgetting the details of the execution model of boot. Every time I wanted to do something, I had to refresh my memory. I have to go inside, look at the documentation. And I found it a bit tedious. And tools.deps came out, and there was some kind of this focus on doing one thing was very attractive. And I started, like many other people, we wondered, can we maybe write small tools and with tools.deps replace this big monolith of build tools? And I discovered a project which is not often talked about. It's the Clojure meyvn plugin. The Clojure meyvn plugin is a plugin for Maven that compiles Clojure. It precedes Leiningen.
Yeah.
It never took off. It never, gained momentum. But it was always there, and it always worked. You could always compile your stuff with the Clojure Maven plugin. And I started to use this technique where, because tools depths can emit a pom.xml, I would emit the pom.xml from the tools depths and feed that to the Maven runtime.
Yeah.
And send this to the Clojure Maven plugin. The Clojure Maven plugin is just one dependency and plugin in the pom.xml.
Yeah.
So you can use Maven to build your projects. I built a tool around this. It's called meyvn, meyvn.
Yeah.
Yes. This has replaced completely Boot and Leiningen. So I'm using Maven all the time. And it works pretty surprisingly well. I was wondering at one point if I wanted to promote this and maybe tell people to start using it, and decided not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering, just before you kind of like went into a bit more detail of it, because I'm interested in hearing the story.
Yeah.
But one of the things that always strikes me about Clojure was that you don't need to build it. So I kind of think, if you don't have to build it, why do you want to build it? And I know there are very specific reasons when you want to have Java compiled in, or you want to distribute into a Maven Central or something. But with the Git shards that you have with tools.deps, why do you need to build anything anymore? You know, I've certainly taken that view at our work. So we don't compile anything. We never build any Uber jobs. We never make anything at all. We just rely on Clojure.
Ray, this is exactly the kind of stuff I like. You think about something and you take it as far as you can. And this is why consensus building works against you. This is exactly the kind of things that people laugh at in a forum. We've been doing this.
They've laughed at me for a long time. It's true.
So I'm all for it. I haven't thought about it, so it's your idea.
Okay.
I'm building Uber jars, which I deploy on servers, and I run those Uber jars. So I'm building. I need to build Uber jars, but I will be very happy to learn from you how to deploy without building anything. I'm very open to that. I'm sure you have exciting.
Yeah, wherever you are going to deploy anything, you just run Clojure, and then it has the same effect.
I'm pretty sure you're right. Probably you need to weigh all kinds of stuff and decide if this is good for you, for your use case.
Sure, of course.
For your team.
Absolutely.
But on that note, I want to say that Maven is not something I use only to build artifacts. I run my REPL with it, and now it's an environment. It's a REPL environment.
Right. Okay.
I've written an Emacs client, which is on Melpa. I've built a website also where you can download it, but it's not open source. It's it's my platform. I'm giving services through Maven. For now, it's educational services, so I'm doing videos.
Yeah.
And what I'm selling is not the video or the course, because I don't want to do that. What I want to do is produce content, and if you want to run the code or see the source code, or then buy a license for Maven, which is a way for me to not feel, if you make courseware, it's basically a lost struggle. It's almost impossible to stay sane. So the deal is, for me, I want to give value to my users, and I don't want to be forced to produce content and feel guilty when I'm not doing it. So I'm just selling a license for Maven. And in exchange, users will get not only the tool, but also the templates. Like, for example, the video on Ruby on Rails, which I just did, which explains how to build a blogging engine from scratch. It's available in Maven as a template for users who are licensed. And I'm probably going to explore other avenues to distribute software via Maven or something like that.
So it's not just a build tool then, but it's more like a platform or a tool that comes with a platform?
Technically, it's like Boot and Leiningen, which both are not only build tools, but also provide you an environment.
Yeah.
You also launch the REPL with Leiningen or Boot.
So is the main motivation to help you out, Daniel? Is that the kind of concept? Is that it's a way for you to... I'm trying to understand whether it's a commercial thing or a kind of practical thing, or a bit of both.
So for me, it's a practical thing. It's it's the tool that I rely on to build my environment, to launch my REPL environment, and to build my artifacts. So I will always treat it like a privileged offshoot of mine. But I'm also want to interact with people in the Clojure community, but in a way which departs from traditional model of organizing a course and sending it on a website. My philosophy is that there is no teaching. There is only learning. All I can do, all a teacher can do, is help you in this process of learning. And this is why I want to produce content, but you are the learner. You have to decide what you do with this content. So I'm doing these videos, which are educational. I show how to do routing for Scratch, how handlers work, how to build a blog engine. But I'm not looking if you are learning, if you pass the test, if you did this first or that first. I don't care, and probably nobody should. You should care. How do you structure your learning? What kind of content do you need to learn and to progress? I'm going to produce content because I like it, and in exchange, I ask people who want to buy a license from Maven, but you don't have to. And then you don't get. You don't get Maven, the tool, but this is the thing that you get if you decide to buy a license.
Okay, so people can still learn something even without the tool. That's the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's YouTube videos. The one on how the ring stack works is for everybody. It's just generic.
Yeah, I'm curious about your because there is a lot of. I'm going back to the beginning again.
Yeah.
So because there is a lot of comparisons between writing and programming, right? So
absolutely.
So what is your opinion on that? Being a professional journalist, writing stuff and also writing code. Writing other things other than code, which is more logical and whatnot. And so, what's your take on that?
Vijay, it's a beautiful question.
Yeah, I think I peaked.
It's like a broken clock. He's right twice every episode.
Exactly. I have only 2 good questions per episode.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. This is the mystery, right? I often find that I come with values from prose writing to programming, which surprise engineers. I think there is something very social sciencey about what we are doing, and yet engineers think we are doing exact science stuff. And all these concerns, all these topics that you see in forums when we discuss what is the best programming language, how how to do types or not do types and stuff like that. They are social science questions. These are questions about psychology, productivity, how the brain works, how teamwork works, linguistics, all these things. And computer science has nothing to say about these topics. And that's a big paradox, because computer science has a lot to say about complexity, about computability, about Turing degrees, and all kinds of things that are exact, that are provable. Yeah. But these are never the topics of discussions of developers, the fireplace discussions. Yeah. These are always social science topics. And yet, there's a lack of awareness that these questions belong to social science. That is my impression.
Yeah, that's. I think that is why we can never, decide the debate one way or the other, whether types are better or not, right? I mean, there's this whole discussion around, because at the end of the day, it becomes like how you think, and it depends on your way of thinking, and
exactly.
which aligns with you.
Exactly, because they are not precise questions, there are no precise answers.
Yeah.
And also, what you just said is very true. For me, if the whole world liked types and there was one person who preferred no types, then that would invalidate the idea that you have to use types.
Yeah.
The other thing that maybe is worth remarking on, though, is that I think part of the problem is that programming came from a very scientific, mathematical, electronic kind of background, and has gradually emerged into a kind of more, what should we say, mixed media form. I think probably if you look at computer science, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there wasn't much wriggle room in terms of, is it art, is it science? It was science. But I think you're right that that's blurred in the last sort of time.
I have to interject something here.
Yeah, please.
This now we are entering a territory which is really fascinating. The way it started. The way it started is because David Hilbert asked a couple of questions in the beginning of the 20th century, 1901, I think. He was a mathematician, and he saw that the field was in disarray. There were paradoxes. Cantor with infinity paradox, and there was all kind of trouble in all kinds of fields. And one of the main pressing points was the question of computability. What is computable? How do you decide if there's a proof for something? And this question spurred a fascinating debate where, this is why we have church, Turing, the guy that did recursive function. This is the core, right? This is the core, mathematical core that inspired people like the Lisp creator. I forgot his name now. McCarthy. He was a mathematician. He was inspired by more by recursive function than lambda calculus, but he really, like you say, Ray, he thought that computer science was a mathematical field, and his ambition was a mathematical. He wanted to be recognized as a mathematician, but not everybody was like that. And there were many other people at the time who came from different fields, mainly linguistics and also social science. And there were the educators also at the time, or a bit later. But it was very early on this kind of mixed sciencey background to computer science. And you know what we say, that the fact that we had to call the field computer science means that it's not science.
Yeah.
So I would be very cautious about the true nature of computer science. I think it's a fascinating topic to explore. I certainly think that there's a mathematical core, but I also think there is a very important linguistic core and things that are rooted in social science or humanities. So,
well, I guess you could say the Turing test is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The point I'm trying to say, though, is that I think it started with a kind of like this mathematical core, but fundamentally it's grown into something where I agree with you that it is no longer the case. You know, whilst it has some mathematics at its base, and there is a sort of sciencey, nerdy kind of feel around computing at the core, and the closer you get to the sort of silicon, the more mathematical it feels. But the whole field, I think, is much more complex.
I think it was never the mathematical core. The mathematical core was mathematics. It was not computer science. It's the main thing to remember is that the people who came up with the proofs about computability, what is computable and what is not, didn't have computers. So it was mathematics. It was logic. It's logics and mathematics. When we started producing general purpose computers, certainly, of course, we could verify these theories, but we had to come up with a way to manipulate these computers. The question was, now what do we do with that? And this question was never mathematical. It has always been.
No, but I mean, it feels a little bit like saying that philosophy and science, you know, that they all used to be called philosophers. That's why you have PhDs. But really, that seems like it's kind of burying the lead a little bit. That there is a difference. So it's in some aspects of the field. You know, that some aspects of the field clearly are more mathematical or more scientific than others. Or are you giving no credence to that? That you're saying that there's
no. I'm trying to understand why you think I'm in disagreement with that. I'm just saying that the question of humans interacting with a computer was never a mathematical question. As soon as you bring computers and give computers to people, general purpose computers, you can give them the mathematics, but you still have a human computer problem, which is of a different type than math problem. This is why
I guess I'm trying to agree with. I'm going very hard to agree with you. that I think the reason why people feel like it's not a social sciencey problem is because of this sort of vestigial feeling that it's all maths and science. So they don't have the people who are trained in computer science at university or whatever, they don't get this feeling that it is fundamentally a social science, that it is a sort of almost liberal arts degree in many ways, especially with the collaborative nature of it these days.
That's a very good point, but that depends on what kind of computer science you're doing. If you work in computability, you work in mathematical logic.
Yes.
There's no question about that. If you work in programming language design, PLT, then you're not a mathematician anymore. You knee deep in social science.
Yeah, it's basically
whether you like
it's
it or
kind
not.
Of like, yeah, it's a fashion show basically.
Yeah, ask Rich.
I think we'll eventually get to him, and then I think he probably would have something to say.
I'm sure. We're all waiting. Maybe he thinks also that hell is the other.
Exactly.
Pretty sure hell is deafened, so that makes sense.
So I think to go back to the your open source projects and your contribution to the community, are there any other things that you want to highlight that is there on your GitHub, or the libraries that people should take a look at?
Yeah, let me keep it simple and tell you, don't look at anything except maybe Benjamin, which is a clean abstraction, which does something quite useful, managing. I mean, I can explain, but do you want, or do we have time?
No, of course, yeah. Please do.
So
I mean, the name gives it away, but it's nice to know what exactly Benjamin is. So
tell me, what does the name give away?
I have no clue.
Is it a way to print money because like the Benjamins? Is that what it is?
Or is it the mathematician?
Yeah, it's a mathematician. Not a very simpatico one. But he was kind of, I suppose I was looking for a name for my library which deals with idempotency. And I came across this guy. So basically what it allows you to do is when you're writing web development or web applications, or any kind of applications, you often have to make sure you don't repeat an operation twice. For example, when you send a newsletter to your users, and in the middle of the operation, you have a problem, and then suddenly you don't know who received the newsletter and who didn't receive yet. And you need some kind of solution to manage these things.
Yeah.
So Benjamin is an abstraction to do that. It takes a persistent function, a logbook function, and you can write your operation, your dependent operation, wrap it into this macro that the library provides, and that's it. And Benjamin, I recommend because the documentation is complete. There is a blog post, and you should have no trouble understanding what it does and how it does it.
Nice.
The other library, of course, is System, because this one has been maintained since day one. It has a big set of components. It's useful if you use component. And I would finally, I think, I wrote this, how do you call this? Certificate issuing an interface, a client for issuing a certificate via Let's Encrypt.
Like the CSR. Yeah. So you can generate the CSR and then get the certificates.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
It interfaces with Let's Encrypt. Which is stable and which is optimized for running as a cron job. If you have
so it can automatically fetch the new certificates, and what it's like a setbot or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a subset of certbot, because certbot does everything.
Yeah.
And mine is just to get a certificate and then to run as a cron job.
Okay.
It's written in Clojure based on excellent JV API. This is a stable project, also well documented. And then if you're adventurous, you can look into this mini framework for ring components, which is called Ramwerk, which ships with system.
And what does that do?
So it's the equivalent of the Duct components or integrant. It allows you to write a declarative system map complete with the middleware and handlers that you might have.
Okay. And of course, you have the meyvn.
And meyvn, which I encourage only people who are intrigued by the videos that I'm doing. I'm not calling, veterans and people who are doing Clojure. I don't want people to start using it as their build tools, but I do recommend it for people who want to who are beginning and who can relate to what I'm doing on the videos.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. By the way, I mean, I really like the way that all your projects have like consistent styling, website and documentation style. I mean, they're really like, it shows that you have typographic, ideas, and it really looks really, really, beautiful. And
thank you so
the
much.
Websites are really well built. So I really like that. So, any other points that you want to touch upon before maybe we want to?
No, I'm exhausted. No, it was really fun.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that we had this conversation, and I'm not surprised because I'm a long-time follower, and I don't miss any episodes, and you always delight me. So, and it was a big delight to be on your show.
Thank you. That's I think we apologize for all the nuisance that we talk usually, but with the guests it becomes much more bearable. The whole podcast stuff. So I think so. People like you add way more value, and then cover it up to all the negative shit that we have, all the bullshit that we talk about.
No, come on.
But hey, it's a pleasure to talk to you, Daniel. And I haven't looked at meyvn yet, but I'll give it a shot. And thanks a lot for your sharing your ideas. And it's really nice to talk to a person who is not from the programming background from the beginning. So the perspective helps a lot. And maybe you should come back to discuss the whole computer science versus is it science? That maybe we should do some fun episode one more time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if you remember rightly, that's the sort of beginning of SICP is the thing that takes apart computer science.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly that's an amazing point. Sussman and Abelson always labeled their educational effort in SICP as linguistic. Their approach is linguistic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you had to know what the Civ of Eratosthenes is, but fair enough.
Sorry,
I said you had to know what the Civ of Eratosthenes was, but fair enough.
The what?
The prime number.
The Civ of Eratosthenes.
Eratosthenes, yeah. So the domain is mathematics. It's one of the criticism of the book, but I myself didn't have any trouble with the mathematics in the book, so I don't think it should be a real. And if you do have trouble, then you can go and use concrete abstraction, another educational computer science book which has less mathematics. And you can also look at Matthias Verleisen, how to design programs. These people are doing amazing work in education of computer science.
Yeah.
And everybody, I really wish to see people from more backgrounds doing computer science. And it's just a psychological barrier. And I want to see people from all kinds, from all backgrounds in computer science, because it's so boring to meet the same kind of people all the time in the office. That's horrible. That has to awesome. It has to stop.
Yeah. Well,
we get the message.
I really appreciate your kind of you've got definitely a more contemplative, reflective kind of attitude, which I really appreciate. So,
thank you.
And I think a lot of the audience does as well. So that's really good. Cool.
Excellent.
So I think that's it for this episode. Thanks a lot, Daniel, and thanks to all the people who are listening to the podcast. As we said, I think we just crossed our 4th year, so we hopefully continue doing this stuff as long as we can. And
can I just finish up by just saying that I noticed that something we talked about offline is that we've suddenly got a little bizarrely in this kind of like this strange time. We've suddenly got a bit of an uptick in the people supporting us. So maybe people are listening to Defen a little bit more in this. I mean, I don't know what comfort we can bring really, but if it's amazing. Something, then I'm really glad,
Absolutely. How do you see that? Downloads or?
No, in the Patreon.
Right. Hey, guys, like David Nolan said last time, if you can, support all the good people.
Exactly. So a big thank you to the people who are supporting Defen. Obviously, there is a lot of other nice stuff going around with Clojures together, and people everybody putting out their time and effort. So what you're doing is not computer science. So on that bombshell.
No, that's not what I said.
Get back to thinking, people.
Exactly.
On the contrary, you might be doing computer science without knowing it.
Exactly. So you might be doing linguistics, but actually you're doing computer science.
Exactly.
Keep having fun, and that's it from us. I think
the main message is you don't know what you're doing.
If you will. Yeah. This is very interesting because this relates to intellectual humility.
Yeah, that's true.
But this will take us
to another episode.
I think it's funnier just to say that people don't know what they're doing now.
Exactly. I can see people screaming listening to the episode like, you don't know what you're doing. We know that you don't know what you're doing.
You don't know what you're doing.
Well,
exactly.
Let's ask them. Let's where do people say what they think?
Exactly.
There is a Defen podcast Slack channel if they want to.
But Slack channel, then it's not public.
Oh, on Twitter or exactly.
Twitter, yeah. Okay,
let's hear wherever it is.
Yeah, well, you could argue that Twitter isn't public either.
Okay.
Oh, fuck no.
Well, it's got the same barrier as entry to fucking Slack ads or Facebook.
Write a blog post or anything.
You've got to give all your crap to some billionaire.
That's a good point.
Okay, so do let us know what you're doing, and then please remind us that we have no clue what we're doing. So we look forward to your angry letters in the mail.
Yeah, P.O. Box Defen.
Exactly.
It'll get there.
Well, eventually.
I hope we'll meet soon physically because I missed conferences and stuff like that.
That's the hottest date request I've had for a while, Daniel, to be honest.
I'm afraid so. Yeah. It's quite depressing.
Yeah. Nice. I guess that's it from us before we go on to another topic.
That's it.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll see you in another episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Defen. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page. And you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me, for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at Defen Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.